Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm Lucas and welcome back to another track guide video today on the channel. And yeah, we've got Imola today, following on from Bahrain, before sort of going in line with the F1 Esports videos that we're releasing at the moment. But yeah, to jump to the point, I have I think it's a Q3 online hot lap that I did for when I was practicing for F1 Esports that I'm going to play now, and embarrassingly, this is actually an invalidated lap, but it's one of the only laps I've got recorded from when I was doing the practice, and you'll see when we get into the lap, it doesn't necessarily change anything I'm going to be talking about when it comes to the track guide. But enough of that out of the way, we're going to play the lap through first, same as last time, and yeah, let's see how it goes. So, Imola compared to we did Imola off the back of Bahrain and F1 Esports, so it was sort of two. Imola has a bit of everything. It's rear limited and front limited at the same time. So heading into sector 1, got to make good use of these curbs, and then you're just minimising the angle, trying to carry as much speed on the way out of the opening complex. This left-right hander is actually really tricky to get nailed. Then you've got the start of sector 2. Circuit rises up, so you get quite a good bit of grip on the front end and good traction on the exit, saving the distance on the right-hand side. Passing the 50-metre board, and this corner's so easy to overshoot. And there's the invalidation that we saw there, where you went a tiny bit wide, but again, it's not going to change anything that we're talking about in this video. Maybe a bit too early on that apex, actually, with the curb, but I think we got away with it alright. Braking smack bang on the 50-metre board, using plenty of curb. We had the car really well set up for the curb through here, which was, I think sector 3 we were very strong. And then into the final section, we opt to use 5th gear just to hold it and get up. It was really strong to use 5th for traction, down to 4th and up to 5th again for the last corner, just to help rotate the car and get the power on. DRS open, save the distance, and that is a lap of Imola. And that was, obviously you saw the invalidation, but that was a 13.997. And there's the sectors there. That was a good sector 1, solid middle sector, and a very good last sector as well, I believe. From rough memory. Anyway, let's jump to the track guide part, which is what you're all here to hopefully see. So yeah, let's just jump straight into it. I'll try not waffle as much as last time. DRS open, and then at the start of the lap, you want to keep the car basically as straight as possible, and you want to save the distance. You want to make the distance, through this technically turn 1 and all that as short as possible to save, those fractional thousandths of a second. Then you're coming into turn 1. I should probably grab my keyboards. No. So into turn 1, we've just passed the 100-metre board, and you want to maximise every bit of road. You're not gonna, unless you do something a bit too wrong or unless you touch the grass, you want to be using this road because you're not going to really lock up massively from using it. So you want to make sure you're using all the road in the entry. Well, so we are 100% brake pressure just around just after the start of this curb, if you want a reference point. So you can see the 50-metre board there. And yeah, we are dropping it down to 5th gear for this corner, I believe. And again, you can see we are literally maximising every millimetre we have available on the entry, rolling it into the apex, and again, utilising all of this curb. Now, you do not want to do, and on the last year's game, you actually could take a line where you could cut right over this inside curb. Don't do that in this year's game. This year's game, it's much more important and much better to be completely clean, and yeah, just maximise these curbs, because these curbs don't massively upset the car if you are, rotating the car normally into the corner. So they don't cause major disruption, and they can help just help a tiny bit of rotation on the front end tires. So yeeting over that curb, same again, just using all the road, holding 5th gear, balancing the throttle as well. You've got to be you don't want to be too too aggressive. It's quite important to get the exit out of this opening complex because all 3 of these corners are interlinked, so you want to make sure that you're getting a nice consistent flow. And you can see we're full throttle just for a brief moment, then we're backing at the throttle, trying to keep it smooth. It's quite easy to actually lose the rear in this section if you're not too careful, so you've got to watch that you don't overstep the rear. And yeah, again, we use literally all the road in the exit because we carried really good speed through turn 2, so then it's all about utilising that momentum and then make it a nice smooth run off out of the first 3 corners. So that's turns 1, 2 and 3 in the books. We're 1/10 up on our delta. Now, again, it's pretty much the same story around here. You've got to use all of the track width. So bringing the car out all the way, and then we start to just initiate that early turn in, right just about before the 50-meter board. So as you can see, approaching the 50-meter board just about a couple of meters before it, and we're starting to turn it in. In 7th gear, a dab of the brake. You can see we're blending at the throttle, getting on the brakes now a little bit. Down to 6th. And then this is car placement is very key here. You don't want to charge in with lots and lots of speed into this one, and then compromise the next. It's much more efficient to, take the first one nice and smooth, keep the car nice and balanced, keep the car over to the left, and then you're down to 5th gear, I believe. And we actually use quite a lot of curb on this. On this inside, we're down to 5th. You can use, I believe you could probably go as low as 4th for this corner as well, depends on your preferences and all that stuff, but we'll just play it through normally. So down to 6th, keeping the car nice and balanced, and then a very aggressive direction change just to shift the weight across the front, and we're holding 5th, getting on the power now, and we literally perfectly run that section, getting the exit nicely. So we'll just run it through slowly once more. Dab with the brakes, down to 6th, using the curb, and then crucially, we straighten up. We're on when we're getting the brake pressure on. That's the moment we're shifting the weight to, or the direction change. So we're not braking a lot when we're still turning left, because that can upset the balance of the car. We're perfectly getting that braking done as we change the direction. That was really on the limit, because you can see that's a very quick change of direction that we had just there. So we'll just play it through. 5th gear, and that is sector 1 in the books. So that was sector 1. Now sector 2, this is us into sector 2 now. Braking basically just on the 50-meter board as a reference, and then this again, gear choice is preference. I like to hold 6th on entry, and I usually use 4th gear, or I think I have used 3rd, but I think we use 4th gear here. And the circuit rises up, so don't be afraid to wind on maybe a bit more front lock than you would normally do, because when the circuit rises up, it's going to give you more grip. So as long as you don't overload the front completely on the entry, so to the point where you run out of grip completely, then you should be okay, because in the entry you're probably going to understeer it a bit, but then that means you can probably wind on a bit more lock on the front, because the grip isn't available yet. But once you do get the grip, the circuit, I can't speak, my brain's running 100 miles per hour. The grip will come to you, so then it'll bite, and then because the circuit's obviously rising up as well, you get very nice traction on this exit. So you can be quite aggressive on this corner entry. You don't want to be. It's better to be probably a little bit too aggressive on this entry than it is to be too safe, because if you go too safe and you hit this inside curb, you've you're not only killing the entry, but you've just ruined the exit as well. So it's not a bad thing to charge in with a lot of speed here, as long as you're able, as you can see there, we just get the front to bite nicely, smoothly on the power, just again winding it out. And we don't want to use here, this is serrated curbs, you don't want to use these, because they will upset the balance a bit and you'll maybe lose a bit of traction. So we use all the road, we're full power about now, and we're just winding it away. Nothing, nothing too complex or detailed to talk about. We're just, just breaking it down bit by bit, just to sort of understand everything. Saving the distance again. We're not bringing the car out wide. On the F1 game, the tyre scrub isn't as it's not like real life where you need to think about your scrubbing tyre, or you're going to lose more time by turning in. The game is you want to save a lot of distance, so saving a lot of distance. And then we pass 50-meter boards here, so it's up to 7th gear. We don't upshift to 8th, even though we're right on the rev limiter. So we've just passed 50-meter board, and this is a very, very challenging corner to get right. It is not easy to pick your braking point. You can use 5th or 6th gear. Sometimes 5th is actually better, but I believe on this lap we go 6th, and probably because of that we actually invalidate, because we just don't get the car in enough on the entry, and when we go on the power we understeer a bit too much. But yeah, we go down to 6th. Now, this corner's so tricky for two reasons. One, because if you go too early, you're in trouble on the apex, and it's very easy to go too late. It's very hard to just perfectly get that that bite, because the circuit sort of it doesn't fall away from you, but the car naturally is very reluctant in this corner. But we get the curb usage quite nice through here. But again, I think because we were in 6th gear, we invalidate by literally the smallest of margins. Very small margin, so again, doesn't affect what we're talking about in this video. But again, on the exits here, you want to try, if you can, to use all of this, as much of this exit road as you can, because it does, you know, this corner is all about maximising the, because this corner is quite front limited, so you want to maximise the road to allow the front, you know, as much time as possible to, you know, give you just give you the lap time, I guess. I don't really have a detailed explanation for it. So yeah, 6th or 5th gear, running it smooth through there, but a bit too wide in that lap, so that was cheeky. But then immediately on this exit, we want to peel it to the left and save the distance, and we're heading now down to Aquaman Rally, I believe it's called. So again, the entry, this corner is very front. That is on the two right-handers on the entries. They're very front. It's very front limited. Very front limited, because you're cornering at high speed and trying to brake all on the front. So it's very easy to overload the front. And about when I say the front tires going into the section. So we, again, using literally every possible bit of road, turning in practically when this curb ends, just literally skimming the grass to try and open up that trajectory as much as we can. And yeah, you do not want to turn in too early to this first apex, because this is in qualifying in the dry, this is even in the race as well, obviously. This is a flat out 7th gear right-hander, so you do not want to, you know, approach this apex too early, because then you're leaving yourself with even more work to do when you're braking and turning into this crucial uphill right-hander. You're trying to like spend your grip wisely, so we want to make sure that going into this second part, we are able to, you know, keep the steering as relatively straight as possible. That we can get away with. So we are fully on the brakes now. We are at peak brake pressure. Just for a brief moment, we can see we're peak brake pressure, and then we're peeling off it. Then we will go down to, I believe, 5th gear. And if you can maximise all of this road on entry, it will make it'll just make life a lot easier, because this corner, it's very easy to even overshoot it on the other side. So very tricky to get the front to bite through this corner in general. And you can take 4th gear here as well. And on this lap, typically speaking, I'm in like the higher side of the gear. A lot of these corners you can actually go 1 gear lower than I'm doing. But again, it will depend on your setup, your downforce, your race, whether it's in the race or whether it's your driving style. You know, it's not always there's not always one answer to get, you know, the same outcome or a good solution to things. So that's one thing key to note in these videos, is this is me just talking through, you know, how I would maybe be going about looking around the lap. So and I hope that's useful for you guys, and let me know in the comments as well how you find these videos, because I'm kind of new to the whole doing track guide stuff. So if you guys have got more features and questions you want to ask, I know this is usually a part for the end of the video, but if you guys have got more things that you would like to see me talk about in these videos, be sure to leave some feedback in the comments, because I'm all ears. But anyway, back to the lap. 5th gear. Again, this is what I think we picked this up in the first time. We are actually too tight to this apex. If we do this corner perfectly, we should get the turn-in point so that we are probably with this tire's maybe here. This is a bit too much, because we actually clip. I mean, thankfully the front right's unloaded, so we kind of get away with it, but we don't touch the sausage gear. But if it leaves it, we turn in maybe a bit too early, so it leaves us with a little bit of a sharper angle for this uphill right hander. And the circuit, I mean, this is really just a straight line traction zone. The circuit will sort of come out to meet you, but you're driving straight over this. You don't really want to be making a corner of this in a sense. So obviously we are correcting the steering because we're, you know, quite heavily loaded on the rear, because the balance shifts from you're front limited, and then very, very quickly the balance is all dependent on the rear going through this section, and the circuit rises up. So, you know, a lot is happening with the car. The car will be moving around a lot. So that's yeah, this is sort of how it is through here. But yeah. Yeah, too early on that apex, so ideally you want to be a little bit further out, and maybe a bit more, you know, pointing towards the exit, because we've turned in a tiny bit too early and we've made it a bit too. We're talking margins, but a bit too tight. Heading out now through the exit. Actually, I'll just play it normally as well so you can get the context. Carrying good speed on the exit, and then you're bringing yourself all the way over to the left. Now, I will put a disclaimer. I'm not sure if this 50-meter board has actually been moved since this, but you can still have the more visual references from this anyway. But we are breaking past the 50-meter board, and this is... We call this, I mean, we nicknamed this the send chicane, because that's kind of what it's all about. So we're 7th gear on entry, and you can go thirds in this chicane as well on the, like, maybe the second apex as well, but I believe I hold 4th for keeping the balance sort of the same, or as similar as possible throughout the chicane. And one thing I do in this chicane, which I think is very useful, because going through the chicane, it'd be very tempting to be, you know, really aggressive when you're changing direction. But what I found actually on this is trying to be basically as smooth as humanly possible. So on the brakes, we'll play it normally first actually. 4th gear, plenty of curb, and then we balance the car perfectly. Nice and straight traction, not using the serrated curb on the exit much, or trying not to anyway, and just getting on the power. That's what we did really well. So what I did here was, down to 4th gear, literally maximising the track 100%. This is not invalid either, by the way. This is, you can literally take this exact line that I'm doing here. So perfectly, and the trail braking is really important here. We get the car in nicely, just as we're reaching that apex, we're finally bleeding off the brake. So that's perfectly trailed into, holding 4th gear. And you can see, I'm not using lots and lots of steering lock either. We're not having to, you know, we're not pushing the front over the curb. We're not like pushing all the way into the corner. We're very nicely balanced, so we're not scrubbing the front too much, running out of front grip. And then we're already, once we basically land, we're very nice and smooth, not that aggressive on like our steering transitions. It's just a nice fluid motion all the way. So through that one, no major correction coming off the curb as well, because the car was nicely balanced. Using all of that. Now, this curb you don't want to use as much as we did in the last one. This curb we can use quite a lot on the entry, but that is also because we are landing the car, or should be landing the car, practically straight, as you can see with the steering lock. By the time we get off the curb, we are bang on straight with the steering, so there's no corrections to be done. You don't want to do that on this curb. If you take that much curb on this one, you'll ground the car out, and then your exit's done. And the exit through here is very important to run yourselves into the final couple of corners. So you want to use sort of, let's say, a regular amount of curb. You don't want to be going over it like this. You want to just use a traditional, like, one tyre onto the yellow like this. And I mean, just the steering lock through here was just so concise, so smooth. We weren't, you know, correcting the car over every bump or having to, like, make corrections. It was just so smoothly executed. So if you're able to go into this chicane and just don't worry about, like, being super aggressive and, like, chucking the car around. If you can just keep the car nice and smooth. So if you just, again, I'll just play it through one more time. The steering was just so smoothly executed because we're not upsetting the car, and if you're able to do that, then you'll be able to get a great exit as well, because we're on the power so early out of here. And full throttle. So that's, yeah, I would say being smooth through the chicane is actually something that you'd be surprised, because usually into, like, high speed sendy chicanes you have to be very aggressive, but in this chicane I find the opposite. If you're able to carry in lots of speed, but just keep it nice and smooth, not over-exaggerating the car, then you're actually going to get really good results out of it. So, yeah, heading into the final couple of corners now. And then, again, you want to be... This, obviously, now, this isn't the same as before, where the curbs are, you know, the flat. This is actually an elevated curb. So this, we are actually... but you still want to use it, so... And this is a downhill braking zone, so it is very easy to understeer into this apex in the mid corner. So you And again, with gear selection, you can use a very wide range of gear. I actually used 5th in this corner, albeit the idyllic gear would be probably 4th, if you're thinking of revs, but I wanted 5th because it was allowed me just to get on the power. It was a consistent gear for the corner and allowed me to get on the power quite aggressively initially, and yeah, then sets me up nicely with traction for the last corner. So I'll run it in now. We'll just play it normally first. Braking really late, get into that apex nicely, and then nice and straight for that corner. So we'll break that down. Braking pretty much on, I would say, maybe like 75 meters, maybe a little bit earlier than that. Just initially getting the brake, then with full brake, probably around 75 meters, give or take, down to 5th gear. And we carried in a lot of speed here. And the front's going to scrub through this corner. That's unavoidable, really. The circuit is going down, so it's sort of falling away from you a bit. So you are going to slide the front a bit. That's natural through this type of corner, so don't worry about it. What's more important, you almost have to aim for the apex because you're going to miss it, because that's the nature of this corner. So in a sense, you want to turn in. Don't overthink it, but you want to turn in maybe a fraction earlier than you would for a traditional flat corner, because you'll aim for the apex and then you'll end up just right here. Now, you can use this inside curb, but again, because it's a little bit elevated, it can maybe upset the car slightly. The way we did it, where we carried in lots and lots of speed, we're trailing into the apex perfectly. Yeah, we could maybe be like, we're talking a couple of centimeters tighter, but yeah, we've yielded good results out of this by taking that line. So if you take this line and don't hit the curb, you've still done a good job. So I wouldn't worry too much. It's important not to miss this corner by quite a bit more than anything, if that makes sense. So yeah, and then and again, very easy to end up in the gravel here, but you can use this serrated curb because we're already on the power by quite a bit, so you don't really need to worry about losing traction far too much through here, because we're not going over the serrated curb, so we should be okay. And then yeah, one more corner to negotiate, and yeah, we can hold 5th, but again, we actually short shift down to we downshift to 4th and then 5th up again. So maximising all the road, we're turning in with like literally maybe three or four serrated curbs left for like a weird reference. We actually had a bit of compression there, as you can see the front right suspension compressing, sorry, as we go from the serrated from the serrated to the green curbing that the serrated is on, then back onto the normal rumble curb. But we get away with it fine, so I'll play it normally. Down to 4th. We actually had a bit of understeer there, so probably could have done better, but I get the crucial thing was we had a nice balanced car on the exit and got in the power and used all the roads. So yeah, we did miss the apex a tiny bit. We could definitely be a tiny bit tighter. Again, we're talking margins, but yeah, so we'll down to 4th. And it's just crucial to carry all the speed. And then you want to, again, save the distance to the line. So DRS open. And then we were just running the car nice and straight. You don't want to end up out here or anything like that. You just want to run it to the timing beam. And that is, a lot of the things I talk about in these videos are common themes. We're talking very repetitive points. Use all the track, don't do this, don't do that. I know certain things can sound quite repetitive, but the common themes are there through the lap for a reason. They're why the laps are developing in such a way. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Not quite as long as actually we're 24 minutes in. I didn't think it was this long. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're all doing well. If you guys have got any feedback for me on these videos, I'd be generally really interested to hear. If you guys would like to hear me reference certain things more, because I'm just talking about these things as I see it through the lap. If you guys want me to, have specific things to talk about in these track guides, please leave your feedback down below in the comments. It would mean the world. And yeah, hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for the support recently. It's been absolutely immense since since the end of F1 Esports. So yeah, love you all. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys in the in the next video. So take care, everyone. Love you all, and ciao.